For life, it is in the right time of that. That doesn't happen to you very often.
I always say that's what it feels like to sit in.
That sounds.
Call to order this meeting of the Park City Board of Education today, Tuesday, September 9th at 4 p.m. We'll stand for the allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're gonna move closed session till the end, and we'll start with the consent agenda, which is 3.01. Consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the regular session minutes of August 15th, closed session minutes of August 15th, account payable registered of August 7th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 26th, 28th, 30th, September 1st, and September 6th. Risk assessment, school council report, contract amendment, Becker, travel requests, special education policies and procedures manual, McPolin Land Trust TSSA amendment, administrative comp addendum, and personnel information.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated. Second.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on any of the items read in the consent agenda?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Okay, that is against. Go on to employee reports. PCA.
Back everyone, good evening. Good to see you all. The school year is off to a good start. Teachers and students are settling into their schedules and things seem to be going really well. Of course, there's always some hiccups along the way, which we will work with the DO on. We appreciate that. PCA would like to express some heartfelt sympathies, though, to the family and friends of Mary Kleisman on her passing this past summer. Mary was a longtime counselor in the Park City School District, specifically at Treasure Mountain, who was kind and loved by very many. She was instrumental in helping my own children, as well as many of our own children, and she will be greatly missed. Our love and thoughts go out to the Kleisman family. As we get the school year going along, the raise in pay has been most appreciated by all. As a matter of fact, I was even speaking to one of the janitors today, and he was extremely excited about this new pay. So we'll all be looking forward to that as teachers, that September 30th paycheck increase. Thank you. PCA is in support of policy 9030, the alternative language services is a resource for some of our most vulnerable populations. So we appreciate that. We are still concerned about substitute pay. Trying to get a sub continues to be an issue, and teachers are spending time covering for each other at times when they need to be preparing for students, which is not sustainable. The sub pay in Park City is well below other school districts in the valley. PCA advocates for the sub pay to come up in order to attract substitutes to work in Park City, especially since paying teachers to cover for each other is more expensive and exhausting. Shannon Hayes and Shannon Hayes was unable to be here tonight. He's in Baltimore, doing a conference for counseling. But we look forward to reporting to all of you in the coming year and continuing our work with the board and with the DO. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. The sub rate was adjusted, just so you know.
Oh, good. I was looking at it yesterday.
It might not be posted because of the HR shift, but it was submitted to.
Awesome, thank you.
So is it now in line with or above where we are in the valley? Do we know?
It's probably more than it's not about. So we invested about $100,000 to raise that under Dr. Sorenson's recommendation of $30,000. Certainly they, another look as we see, what jobs aren't filled and that type of thing. This was a recommendation by Andrew staff to set it at those rates.
So we have to advertise this one, that's not yet. We have to advertise it.
When are we advertising?
Yeah. The rates for.
Yeah, when?
Our HR person, you just approved him in the personnel report, so he will start October 1st. I'll talk to Veronica tomorrow, obviously, about it, but that's when our formal new person will be. And we'll make sure that just staff is highlighting it as well.
Yeah.
I'll try to get for you a copy of what they do to advertise. So you probably haven't seen it because it's from their entity.
What is the rate?
Yeah.
What's our day rate? Yeah, for
$150 for a licensed teacher.
150 for a licensed
For the
teacher.
entire day.
And if you're not a licensed teacher, the that's current.
Jordan School District is about 200.
Oh, wow.
And for long-term sub for a licensed teacher, it's elementary should do it.
And where are we bumping up to?
We're gonna.
Okay, but sorry.
While we're looking at that, how to deal with that shortage of self-care.
They're not gonna see it.
How severe is that shortage of self-care? How severe is the shortage?
I do know that some teachers at Ecker Hill reached out to me, just, they weren't complaining, they just letting there's LOP available, is teaching every day.
So, is that in your sign?
LLP is lots of planning.
Lot of prep,
51,
right.
lots of planning.
So they can't prep time and they said they're coming for another teacher during that prep time.
Yeah, so the 150 for license is the new rates. 23 was $133, went up to 150. Non-licensed went from 116 to 130. And then long-term went from 150 to 170 and 133 to 150. So those are the rates.
And other districts are, you're saying Jordan's 200?
300.
I can get you the table.
That'd be awesome, yeah. Yeah, if you've got that data, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think as a board, we're able, if we wanted to give guidance to the administration to bring the sub pay up to either at competition or above. Is there an interest in doing that from the board?
Well, I think as a principal, I would say yes, but I think that we need to understand more about the potential cost of doing that. The differences.
Well, I think there's two ways to look at the cost, right? One is the absolute number
That's
that we would be paying, right? But then I think the equally important, if not more important, is if we don't fill it, right, then we're having teachers lose their prep. So there's an implied cost in that. It's very difficult.
And you're also paying your teachers at their rate.
Right. So you actually end up, so you don't have the headline rate,
More money.
but it could end up costing you quite a bit more. Do you have any view, Ann?
I mean, I'm all started this little crazy ride as a substitute teacher, so yeah, I think it's an incredibly valuable position, and I'd love to see us at least be competitive with Somebody's gotta drive up from Salt Lake to come here.
For all the reasons we just think. it's
Yeah.
fair across the district.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, I think
Essential,
at
yeah.
the minimum, we'd like to make sure that we are in line with
Yeah.
other districts for substitute and long-term. And then I think it'd be great to see some numbers by next meeting on what it would take to get above that.
Yeah, yeah.
And looking at the net amount, right? So what are we spending on our, and it's gonna be an estimate, right? Because it's what are we spending on our hourly rate for our teachers working overtime versus
Right.
what are we really paying? You know, so that an estimate of the net amount as close as we can.
So we can estimate that based on jobs that are filled, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, we're paying somebody to fill that job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
So let's start with getting it up to wherever the highest in the valley is, and then if, you know, then let's look at the numbers to take it beyond that. Thank you, Dr. Mandel. What do you think? Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that to our.
Yeah.
And that's this is the way, if you could just give the feedback to your membership that this is, you know, we can act
Step on our-
quickly if you guys bring it up to us, so thank you.
Okay, and I'll get you the, website.
That'd be great. Okay.
And then just advertise as quickly as possible to get the word out.
Okay, do we have anyone from any of the other employee groups today? All right, we'll move to 4.02, an update on the successes of the RISE program.
Perfect.
Is
You
that-
want us to sit?
Yeah, please come up here. Yeah.
You're just gonna pass out the impact reports you were all.
You guys can just-
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, well, I know some of you and don't know some of you, so I'll take a second to introduce myself. I'm Sarah McCarthy. I am the Community Impact Director at Park City Foundation. This is my colleague Junior, and he's gonna introduce himself as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Junior Guerra. I am a minor alumni. I graduated from Park City High School. Previously, I was the outreach coordinator at the Park City High School. Now I'm the outreach at the Park City Community Foundation, and I oversee the RISE Foundation. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. He has a lot of fans in the room, so that's good. I think a lot of you are familiar with the Community Foundation and some of the initiatives, but we work to bring folks together to solve the most pressing needs in our community. So affordable housing, early childcare, access to sports and rec. Some of you may have heard of Give PC, also an initiative of the Community Foundation, but yeah, we have our hands in a lot of different things, but this is one that Junior and I are super passionate about, is the RISE Fund. And it actually started about 3 years ago and born out of the Solomon Fund. So the Solomon Fund is a program that works to increase access for Latino children in our community, really in the younger grade levels, to make sure that everyone has access to the skiing, the mountain biking, the karate, all the different programs that happen in our community that are really amazing. So a donor approached us 3 years ago and saw that there was a lack of access at the high school as well to access school sports, that not all kids had access. And so we worked with our friends, Roger and Jamie, to put together a program that really helps to address those. So thanks to Roger and Jamie for all their hard work over the last couple of years as well. But Junior's going to tell you a little bit about RISE Fund.
Thank you, Sarah. And yeah, so the RISE Fund is a program that looks to make all sports and clubs accessible to all students that are facing financial needs at the Park City High School. And we did this because, like Sarah said, we noticed that there was kids who were applying for the fee waiver at the school and still needed help paying that remaining amount of fees. And then we also saw families that didn't qualify for the fee waiver at school, but still needed help paying for the sport fees or whatever activity fees that they were participating in. And so the RISE Fund was created, and the way it works is that we have an online registration form that a kid can access by scanning the code on our postcard, but we have a QR code where they can find the menus at the high school in the front office and at the counseling office at Treasure. So the kid can just go on the registration form, fill out the form, and select the activity that they'd like to participate in and pay a small fee, and then the school invoices us. and we cut a check and grant out the checks to them, the kid plays and the school gets paid. And if you go to the next slide, last year, we had 91 students apply for the Rise Fund. We had 113 registrations, all varied from different sports, from girls soccer, Model UN, debate, football, track and field. And one of the most popular sports was mountain biking. And I really like to promote this sport because it's super inclusive. It's a great sport for any first-time student that's never participated in a team. And what the Rise Fund is all about is helping those kids find a sense of belonging. And we believe that through sports and clubs, the kid can find a sense of belonging and then have that motivation to go to class, go to school and be there with their peers. And that's really what we're all about, just making sure the kid can play and be a part of something and not having cost or financial reasons be a barrier.
Perfect. And you can see last year we granted out almost $57,000 to support students at the school. So each year at the end of the school year, we survey all the Rise Fund students that signed up. In your impact report, you'll see some of those survey findings, and I think they're all really, really promising. But a couple that I wanted to pull out is that 89% of students said they made new friends, right? And so if we're talking about building community, building connection, that's really amazing. At the bottom, we also see that 72% felt a greater sense of belonging at school after participating in their sport or club. So once again, like Junior said, working towards building the sense of belonging is really important for both the Solomon Fund and the Rise Fund. And yes, we want kids to be able to participate in soccer if they want to participate in soccer or cheer. But we also realize that there's so many greater benefits for kids to participate in these sports, including wanting to go to class and maintaining their grades so they can participate, greater academic achievement, etc. So I think the results are really exciting. And if you're wondering how you can help, we are always trying to get the word out, right? So trying to get the word out to students and families, staff, administrators that this program is available. Junior and I often meet with folks in the school working with students to let them know about the program, but any help that you can do to help spread the word is great. And then this is also a philanthropic initiative. So, if you know somebody that might be interested in getting involved with this type of thing, donating, we're always happy to set up meetings with folks and because we want to continue to save the work, to sustain the work. And one thing that Junior mentioned is last year there were 91 students that participated, and that was about double from the year before. So
What percentage is that of the kids who applied?
So if the student is applying, they fill out a series of questions, but we don't turn anyone away. If they're asking for financial need.
And so they get funded 100% of what they need.
They get funded a portion. So the way it works is they apply to the Rise Fund. We also ask them to fill out a school fee waiver. And then the kid pays a portion, the student pays a portion, and we pay a portion. So, and we're kind of looking at, so last year we did, sports is pretty straightforward. Like there's a set cost. They pay a fee, and then we help cover some of that. Where it gets complicated a little bit is with travel, because there's so many cool opportunities. But we also realize that kids benefit a lot from that as well. So we're looking this year to figure out kind of what are our guidelines as far as travel and what are we funding and what are we not. So
do you have a range of funding? You said nobody gets turned away, so you're talking like 10% funding to 100% funding, is it 50% or 100%?
for the sports, it's a flat fee. And then for the travel, it's a percentage of funding. Yeah. Questions?
Thank you so much for doing activities as well as sports, because like the robotics and the modeling and all of that is just as important for a student who maybe isn't a basketball player.
Yeah, and Model UN, our Roger reached out to us about Model UN last year, and we were able to help 7 students?
6 students and a teacher. Great.
Yeah.
It's a relevant conversation. We're going over student fees
Yeah.
today.
Yeah,
So this
we
is,
love that.
this is relevant. I think it's especially relevant, looking at things through an equity lens, right? How do we provide opportunities, to all kids in
Mhm.
schools? So thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really
Thanks, feel
appreciate
free to reach out to us. You have our email, so you can find them online,
Yeah.
but with questions. So, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Point 03, chief of teaching and learning.
Then next is our. The big board. I just thought.
I brought the posse today, because we wanted you to get a little bit of FaceTime with the new teaching and learning team. And so +1. So, Amy who Jenkins, who is the elementary curriculum director, Eric Snyder. Secondary, Lindsay Huntsman, as you know, for CTE, and Amy Campbell, who's joined us from MTSS. We are here to share with you the measurable strategic goals from our strategic plan, what the results are that we know so far from last year. The USBE has released part of the data, and some of it is having to be tweaked a bit. Report cards are delayed until the end of October. And so what we know so far that they've reported, we will share. And then some of the data we have from our own data platform of the ACRIS data. So we're going to hit those 5 big goals. And then, so next slide, just use the icon tab. Great. Okay. So these are the 5 measurable strategic goals that we have in our district plan. 3rd grade reading, English language learner, proficiency on the WIDA, 8th grade math, ACT, and graduation. And we will, we wanted to also acknowledge Caitlin, our psychometrician, who also assisted us with making sure that we know where we are, we're measuring what we say we're measuring, and that as we move forward, we can tighten them.
All right, so I'm going to take over. There's 2 percentages up there. The top one represents the percentage of 3rd grade students who are reading at benchmark on the spring Acadians for 3rd grade last spring. So 78% of our students, if you've got an elementary student or you've had one, were either green or blue on Acadians, which is a screener test for at-risk reading indicators. Now, what the bottom 57% is telling us, this is the new metric that the state is having us kind of peel back a layer a little bit and look at the number of students or percentage of students in 3rd grade reading at proficiency as aligned by their composite score coming out of Acadians and transferring that over to a Lexile level. So if you've got readers in your house, you know that those Lexile levels are in bands for each grade level. So Acadians and USBE work together to identify what would be considered an on-grade level reader at the end of 3rd grade. Currently, we're sitting at 57%. The state average is 40, that's right here, 48%. And Park City School District is actually within the top 10 of school districts with our 57%. The goal is to have, at the state level, the goal is to have 70% or more of our 3rd grade readers reading at grade level by 2027. So by tracking our top metric, the blues and the greens, we can then dig in one layer further and start to track that second one of reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. So those are 2 numbers that we're going to start watching closer, because as we know, as our students are identified blue or green, we think they're doing okay. But what we're finding is within those blues and greens, we need to dig one layer deeper and make sure they're hitting that Lexile level as well, with a high enough composite score coming out of Acadians. So we'll keep tracking that, but right now I think we're doing okay. We just I think having an extra set of eyes on it's gonna be important. The next one that I have is the language learners, and this is a point of celebration, I think, for our school district, for two reasons. This is the percentage of students who reach proficiency K-12, well, not K, but the students in our system K-12 that passed the WIDA access test in February of last year. The exit criteria did change for the WIDA access test for students to graduate out of needing those additional language services. So in the past, it was they had to have a composite score of a 5 or higher. And what was decided this year and I don't know if this was a national decision or a state decision, state decision, is that it was a 4.2 on the composite and at least a 3.5 or higher on the speaking domain. And so they are looking at the data a little differently. So based on that, we were able to exit 23% of our students. Caitlin, being amazing, as we all know, did run the data as if they stayed with the same exit criteria. We did have an increase even using the old exit criteria of exiting 5.8% of our 480 MLL students. So that was an increase from last year to this year. So if we kept same metrics for exiting or criteria for exiting, we still would have had an increase in the number of students reaching proficiency. So that's a celebration as well. So good numbers on both sides. Again, still working hard in that group of students.
Yeah, the 8th grade math, next few slides actually, 51% of our students scored proficient or higher on the RISE assessment. That we have trended up over the past 3 years with that and are usually between about 6 or 7% higher than the rest of the state. What is not shown there though, the other side, you have achievement there, the other side is progress. And astonishing, we had 97% of our students meet or exceed their projected growth out of that class, which is amazing. 115 students or 48% exceeded their projected growth, almost 50%. So that is just really astonishing to have that high a metric for growth across the whole school. The next one is ACT. 77% of our juniors in 2023 reached the benchmark, state benchmark of 18 or higher on the ACT. The two metrics you have up there, 2023, 68% of our senior class reached the benchmark for college and career readiness in English, which is 18. And 59% reached the college and career readiness for reading, which is 22. Comparatively, this is approximately 13% higher than the state of Utah and 15% higher than the nation respectively in both of those areas. So it worked out to be actually exactly 13% higher than Utah and 15% in the nation respectively, with our goal being 75% is what we want to reach. So moving towards that goal.
For our graduation metric, that 94% represents the students who walked in 2022, because there's always a 1-year lag in the reported graduation cohort. Even the kids that walked in 2023 could still be getting under the wire until September 30th for this year. So we do know that while we are well above the state average of 88%, we'll see another jump next year. So that's a big celebration for our district. The second area that we're going to report to you is on these other areas of focus, particularly in light of the legislative audit and the comments that are in there about targeted populations and support for those populations. And so that's why Amy is joining us today to talk to you about what's happening in every school, about reaching out and looking for students that are targeted in our populations. And then Lindsay will finish up with talking to us about the other areas of what happens to students who are at the top end of our system for advanced placement, concurrent enrollment, and career and tech ed.
So the question outlaid for me was, what are we doing to support targeted student groups in Park City School District? So I kind of tried to build you the system of what multi-tiered systems are. So I kind of take all this data from elementary and secondary, and we use it to build a system of intervention. So we start with screeners. The Acadians reading and math are screeners at the elementary level.
And at the secondary level, it's STAR primarily, STAR 360, which we use to determine what the overall academic need is, kind of a blanket for what's needed. Let's find out what these students can use and to identify who needs to go on to diagnosis. So there's a need of some sort. What is that need? We're going to diagnose and dig deeper. We use our Ready tools for this. We use more STAR. We use some other diagnostics that are specific to reading and specific to math. Once we diagnose, we pinpoint or target those subgroups or the need of that student, then we intervene. And everybody in every building has some form of intervention. So teachers will intervene if it's something that's related to the content, if it's a standards-based need. So I taught you the information. I assessed whether you got it. Did it land? Did it not land? Then I'm going to do something. I'm going to address it with an intervention. So it could be a small group. That's considered a tier 2. It could be, I'm going to reteach my entire class because it didn't land for everybody. That's considered a tier 1, right? So the core is tier 1. First stage of intervention is done by teachers. That's tier 2. Then if we find it's something foundational, like they can't read, or there's some reading components that are breaking down, or they can't compute, or they don't have number recognition, it's something math-based, then they'll probably see an interventionist. That's considered tier 3. The interventionist will either pull out or push in to support and try to get that foundational information back up to where they can access the core. In addition, we also provide a lot of supports for our ESL specifically. We have an interventionist in each elementary building, and we have teachers in each secondary building that will provide language services to help them access the standards so that they can then show proficiency. So intervention and support is the biggest piece of multi-tiered intervention. All right, and then after we've provided that intervention, about 4 to 6 weeks later, we'll take a look at it. We'll pull all the data. We may reassess. We'll sit down as a team of teachers at the secondary and even at the elementary, and we'll go, hey, did it work? Did it not work? And then we may start again. Do we need to do a different intervention? Do we need to screen for something different? No, that's MTSS in a nutshell.
Okay, early college and CTE. So early college stands for advanced placement and or concurrent enrollment, so AP and CTE. Last year, we had 500 students earn 3,146 college credits through UVU. That's the estimated savings of 1.2 million for families in terms of college tuition. Of the students participating in current enrollment, 13% were Latinx. That is the highest percentage of Latinx students from any Wasatch-backed high school. So that includes North Summit, South Summit, and Wasatch High. And if you know the enrollment at Wasatch High, it is double our enrollment. So that's a pretty significant statistic. 883 students took 1,851 AP exams with a 78% pass rate. That is an increase of tests given, and typically when you give more tests, you see a drop in your pass rate. That was not the case at Park City High School in our 9th grade Treasure Mountain this last school year. In terms of CTE, currently we offer 10 career clusters. Those are the overarching areas within CTE. So engineering, computer science, health science, business and marketing, architecture and construction. And within those 10 career clusters, we have 16 different pathways, which is a lot for a school district of our size. So that's something worth celebrating. 75% of our students in grades 6-12 were enrolled in at least one CTE course last school year. And currently, as of today, we have 1,951 unique students for first semester enrolled in at least one CTE course. So we expect that percentage to increase due to some additional courses as well as revising our pathways. And lastly, in the spirit of educational equity, I like to celebrate our win in CTE. So last year, you may recall, we introduced a new course, drone aviation, where students could earn their certification with their Part 107 license, which gives them the certification they need to fly for industry. And the demographic of that course was almost identical to the high school demographic. And when I say that, in the course, 21% were Latinx at the high school. In the general student population, our Latinx population is 16.2%, so almost 4% higher.
And then with the economically disadvantaged at the high school as a whole, it is 15%, and in that course, it was 21%. So we are moving the needle in terms of educational equity, despite what some may believe, and that's a small win from my perspective, especially in the CTE area, given this was a new course. So we are justifying the expansion at Ecker and the high school as it relates to CTE.
Just had to slide that in. Thanks to our team.
Thank you all.
Hope you enjoyed that FaceTime, and we're glad that we got to share with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the group? A lot of data there. Anything, Nina?
No, not really. I mean, I appreciate the data you headed off all the questions I would have had, which would have been about how we compare to national and state numbers. So it sounds positive. Yeah.
Great. This is great. I think I have one question. Are you doing any adjustments in terms of evaluating and reflecting on how things are going based on audit and based on some of the recommendations, or are we?
Yes, absolutely. And we are going to start at the level of the teachers collaborating in the PLCs.
Okay.
And Eric, Amy are working really hard on making sure that in that professional learning collaboration cycle, that the data coming back about student performance is being addressed, and that we are driving that cycle right there. So we're looking really closely at that. And then from the top down, we'll be looking at the alignment all the way through our strategic pillars, our district plan. These goals that we have, how do they need to be broken apart? What do we need to be doing in a 30-day, in a quarter, in a year at each of those levels? So we're going to start at the bottom and work up. We're going to start at the top and work down. And we will be adjusting this.
Right, and unfortunately, the auditors never spoke with Amy Campbell about any of the MTSS. So they kind of missed an opportunity there to at least hear what we're doing.
Yeah, great.
No bitterness or anger, though.
I feel left out. Yeah, yeah. I have one other question, sorry. The CT, I love how you highlighted the different group, like, and comparing, because I think those minutia of a class showing how there's changes. Do we consider, as a data point, neurodiverse students accessing some of those classes, and what classes could be accessed by neurodiverse, and how we're doing in that?
Yeah, for CTE,
Yeah.
we have no barriers.
Okay.
Every student can access a course within the CTE pathway. The only barrier we have is PC caps, and we say you have to be 11th or 12th grade, and that's due to the driving component.
Yeah.
That kids need. In fact, you may remember a couple of years ago, we reduced PC caps from a double block period to a single block period because of these reasons. We were limiting access for students who needed additional services, and those were built into their school day. And Adrian and I are working, I know Ann and Dan met earlier this school year. We are open to any feedback. The last thing you want to do is prevent access.
Meeting?
Yeah.
I would love a PC caps for the SPED group, and I will be the employer to come in, but I'm seeing an incredible need for it. Thank you for teaming me up. Just seeing an incredible need for it, and to prepare those people for jobs, for presentation, for problem solving. And I think having peers or, you know, others that are in that class with them, I really love to see that happen.
Let's
So
do it.
whatever you need me to do, I'd love to get it in this year.
Yeah.
Specific to CTE, are we providing transportation for people who don't have a car?
So they signed a waiver, and this has been vetted through council that they can transport themselves, ride with another student, or take district transportation. So currently, we have never had a student who couldn't participate or access their client due to transportation. And one of the silver linings of COVID is our students all learn Zoom. So a lot of the client meetings are now virtual, so the traveling aspect is minimal.
Or the clients coming here. I mean, I just have to repeat.
Yes, a lot of clients will
Yeah,
come to site.
yeah, so.
So a couple of questions I have. One, you know, all these numbers seem to be better than the state and the national average, but how do they look historically for our district? Are they, what does the trend look like? on these? Is it upward trending? Is it flat? Is it
It's
downward
flat.
trending?
Overall, it's flat. There are some wins. Graduation rate continues to trend up. So what I've noticed is coming in from outside, the WIDA was a big jump this year because of the reasons that she explained. The other ones are pretty flat, and that is what we have got to target, reach in and work on. The things that are at the end of the system, those continue to increase. So even though those are flat, kids are growing and they're leaving our system with a lot of skills, with things that they need. We need to get those things trending upward so that kids can start taking advantage of more things more quickly.
Do we have targets set for those? I mean, do you have good goals that are looking towards for next year, or we need to increase? By
That's what
5% or
we're
number?
working on. That's what we'll be
Like real
doing.
tangible stuff. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of my question, but, you know. Some of these numbers, I mean, relative, they look good, right? But on an absolute basis, they look pretty abysmal, right? Like a number that 50% of third graders are at their reading level, to me, is a significant issue, right? I mean, if you can't read by third grade, then you start to learn through reading as opposed to learn
To read.
to read, your 50% of the kids are already behind. So, I mean, some of these numbers are worrying, especially if they're on a flat trajectory. So I guess, you know, our job is to empower you guys to have the resources to impact these numbers and have a positive outcome. What is the, I guess, I think we want to spend, I mean, I personally, I don't know about you guys, I'd like to spend more time with this group at our meetings, understanding what are the steps that are being taken to get these numbers up, and what is it that you need from us as a board to provide the resources. So I think checking in.
I'd love to see more about specific areas where they're not.
Yeah, I mean, checking in every year is probably not going to be sufficient.
Okay, so I come back to you in a month and I will come with some of the discussion points for that, okay?
Yeah,
And
yeah, not trying to put you on the spot now. I think it's just,
Yeah.
I think it's probably helpful, especially because there's a lot of new faces in your team.
So,
To have a monthly update and go into data and, you know, what initiatives are being taken specifically, because I think this should be our number one priority for as a district. So we've had a lot of focus on other things over the past several years, but this is pretty key. So.
we'll do it.
Yeah.
All right. Any other
Thank
questions
you.
for the team?
Thank you.
No, look forward to seeing you again.
We'll move on to COO.
Good afternoon, previously our board operations updates for the September 23. From the Buildings and Grounds Department, Buildings and Grounds is fully staffed and operations are running smoothly at all the schools. Park City High School parking lot repairs, seal coating and restriping are complete. We've noticed the Highway 248 dedicated bus lane project is complete in front of our campus now, greatly improving traffic flow and turns. Mike and Randy, we met with Park City Municipal regarding proposed changes and extension of the interlocal agreement. Mike and Randy are also working with Summit County to explore the establishment of a regional housing authority. Park City School District was invited to sit on the Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone Committee with local leaders on the 17th of October. And an RFSQ was issued for district-wide athletic master facility. That should wrap up in transportation. We have a new driver trainer who was recently hired and 4 driver applicants that we are in the process of talking to and screening and possibly bringing on board, which is a welcome, big welcome. Transportation is working on ridership data upload in the Power School, and that will allow us to use Swift K-12 to do customized communication by route. So if we have a bus accident, a bus 36, we can contact that parent group quickly. I'm proud to say that all but 3 of the 110 space available applicants have been accommodated, and we're still working on a solution for the remaining 4. Jeremy, Deer Valley, Park City Heights transportation being provided to all eligible riders in accordance with state law. We're still working on a better solution for Deer Valley. We can talk about that a little bit more in the end. And I'll bring straight forward to child nutrition services. Right now, child nutrition services is fully staffed and operations are running smoothly at all the schools. The Eckerd Hill Middle School kitchen should be complete by fall break, allowing the return to normal ops and hot meals. And there's normal meal operations at Park City High School, Treasure Mountain, Jeremy, and Trailside, which are not impacted by construction. Human resources, as Dr. Jill mentioned, we've got a new CHRO was hired and will start on the 1st of October. We're looking forward to bringing Craig on board, and the EMS job classification study is wrapping up and should be complete by the end of the month. Security, our beginning of the year drills were conducted by all the schools in accordance with state law. Instant alert system, AJAX, that we brought on board with convocation at the beginning of the school year has already been used at drills in 4 of the schools. We have an RFP for AI camera-based firearm protection platform that will close out tomorrow. And the House Bill 61 grant application for security funds was submitted on the 15th deadline. I'm asking for about $1.5 million of funds to supplement our security efforts here in the district. So that's all I have.
I have a comment. Way to go on the high school parking lot, Mr. Bobby. We've tried that. And he's out there every single morning. He's making sure everybody's parking where they're supposed to park. He made signs and it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
I have a question. Well, you talked about the driver applicants. What's the gap with drivers right now?
We're down 4 contract positions. Those positions are being filled currently by the office staff and a mechanic shop. And so as we bring people on board, if these applicants are successful, we'll start to be able to turn those folks to the day jobs. Don't get forward.
Have we started to see some positive impact in applicants from the increase in pay?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have numerous applicants for the trainer position, and we're starting to see more applicants now for drivers who service that pay is better.
Okay, so can I just clarify something so I fully understand this, like the bus routes? I understand there are being access, I just better understand, so let's take the Deer Valley, which is the one we have, the letter about and discussion going. That isn't related, I mean, the lack of bus drivers has an impact on that. However, let's pretend we have all the drivers, that is still not a route we are serving because there are not enough numbers of students who stated they would take that bus.
That's right, and we can choose, the board can choose to support, even if there are fewer than the numbers that allow for state funding. So
Okay,
for us to get state funding per route, it's greater than 5 or greater to get 50% funding, 10 or greater to get full funding for that route.
okay, and how do we discover if what it was a route, and forgive me for not fully understanding this. If there could be 10 students, that there maybe aren't because the route's not happening. So we're not seeing 10 students show up down at Sweet Valley to catch the bus. How do we determine if the students become enough?
We can rely a bit on historical data.
Okay.
We can say last year, even though we had 20 eligible students, only 2 showed up regularly.
Okay.
That's a good indicator. I suppose short of calling each family individually and saying, hey, if we bring bus service back and do it with the kid ride, I don't think that there's an effective mechanism. We can certainly make those calls to those families and see if that's.
Can we just put a survey out rather than call? I mean, my survey responses aren't going to be 100%, but I mean, is that going to give us a better picture without?
That's a possibility.
Can we do a proactive rather than the family having to do it, who runs into if another law, they can't get the contact information,
Sure.
no,
Yeah,
right?
certainly.
Could we? And then even if we're doing that, and let's say we get 10, that's the ideal, then we service a bus, right?
Oh, we
The
would
bus
get funding for
driver.
the bus. If
Or we get the
bus driver.
funding, we get the bus driver, and we get the funding for the bus. What you said, the board can decide to fund the bus route, even if it's not state mandated, because there aren't enough numbers.
The state-
And that state funded, sorry, 24,000. Is that what you said?
That was
Last-
the average cost, we looked at the Jeremy routes, right at the beginning of the school year, it was $24,000
Okay.
per year.
Okay, so are there 3 routes currently in town that this is an issue with, or just?
Yeah, so
Deer Valley?
what happens is all of our buses triple turn a day, right? The first one goes to the high school and Treasure, next one goes to the elementaries, and the next one goes to Eckerd. So all 3 of those groups of kids reside in Deer Valley, right? So all those kids are being asked to come down to Sweet Valley because of the lack of drivers. So we would have to add, if we would have to have a dedicated bus route and driver to go up there 3 times a day. If we go up there now and extend that by the 10 minutes it takes each direction, that's 20 minutes, and you magnify that times 3. Now our kids are off schedule at Eckerd on a regular basis at 60 minutes, and we 45 to 60 minutes. So that's why we haven't been able to support it right now. Even if the board wanted to do it, we got a driver.
Do we have any flexibility in the routes?
We've been doing a lot of creative routing this year. If you're asking Deer Valley in terms of,
Well, I'm just saying, obviously, we have routes that our buses drive. Are those stuck? Or can we do something in terms of, well, maybe there's a better route that would actually enable us to pick up other kids?
yeah, no, we adjust routes all the time based upon bus numbers or student numbers on the bus. We did it just recently with a Pine Brook overcrowding in one particular bus, and we split that between 2 routes. So we do that regularly, adjust the routes. So we think right now what we have in place is the best solution given the resources that we have.
Yeah.
As the drivers numbers progress, we have the bus. We hope we'll have the drivers. Now, as I mentioned, the shortage of 4 drivers will return the people who are driving, who are actually working in the office, back to their day jobs, and our mechanics back to their day jobs. Those will probably be first goal, but as we get healthier there, we'll have more latitude to find another driver to that particular problem if we choose to do that.
It is pretty common though throughout our different neighborhoods that during, like, say, the winter weather, people, the buses don't continue to go all the way up Summit Park. The kids come down to a centralized location to save that time. So it is a common practice throughout our routes that sometimes kids do come to a centralized spot. You know, it's not door to door
And we do it in Pine Brook as well.
service, yeah, so while it's not as convenient as being on the block, you know, down the block where you can watch out, it does help with the timing of the routes.
You know, and the parents could have additional safety concerns about walking down the Marsac, and I totally agree there. So, as I mentioned to the father when I replied, that clearly the solution we have in place isn't necessarily what we want, but and we'll continue to look at something better. But that's kind of, you know, at the board's behest, if we don't get the numbers, do you want to run if we get to driver numbers, will the board direct me to run a route, knowing full well that we won't get state funding for it?
Is it 24,000 a route? So would it be 75,000 for the year because it's
There would be 72,000 for the year.
So all 3 of those routes are for lack of, pretending we have the drivers,
Yeah.
they're all for lack of state funding because there's not the numbers. All 3
Yeah,
of those routes.
so this year for the McCollum run, we've got 16 eligible this year and only 2 enrolled last year. For Eckerd Hill Middle School, we've got 7 eligible this year and only 4 enrolled last year. And for Treasure, we had 22 students eligible this year, but they never had more than 5 on any given day last year. So, you know, based on those statistics, that doesn't look positive for having the number of students regularly on the bus.
So it's not the eligibility, it's the right to ridership.
That's right. And, you know, the transportation department, even last year was doing some creative accounting to get us to 5 and 10 at times.
But when the state came to review the routes,
That's
that's
right.
how this kind of came up, right? The state comes in, they do, you know, special ed audit every 5 years, they do transportation audit every so many years, child nutrition services every number of years. they look at the ridership numbers and they look at the distances and, they make sure we're complying with all the state regulations. And so, they mentioned to Rich that there were a few routes like the Jeremy route and the Stewart Valley route that likely would not qualify for state funding. So that's why the auditor recommended he send those letters out so that families know in May that next year, they wouldn't be state funded.
The letters are in the backpack.
Right.
And we can't absorb any of those into other routes just because of the distances that we'd have to be driving.
I'm sorry, Nick, I missed the
Yeah.
first part of your question.
We can't absorb any of those underserved numbers, right? The ones we can't, by state, unless they can't put on a route. We can't absorb those into other existing routes just because of the distances that they would have to travel.
No, we did absorb, so the children who are going down to Deer Valley are now being absorbed with all the other kids going through Palm or Ecker or Treasure.
But they come to a centralized
That's right, so
stop.
that consolidated number pushes us about 10. and
Okay.
allows us to get state funding there.
But it doesn't let us to go up into Deer Valley because of the time and the.
Right, the logistical constraint is the time to get up there, the extra 20 minutes, around 50, get up and back down with our current driving staff. If we get more drivers, we can certainly have a customized route that's gonna go up there, but every time you're going up there for a year, it's gonna cost you $24,000 roughly per route. So
And that's the cost of that is labor or is labor in a bus?
labor plus gas, all in, yeah.
And what about smaller buses?
Fans.
It's potentially something we can look at, yeah. You still have the labor component. but-
Right, assuming we found the drivers. Could we do smaller? CDL vehicles or?
I'm sure we could, yeah. But I don't think that would significantly impact it, drop the fuel consumption down, was it? But if you look at, if a bus right now is costing roughly $200,000, 10-year life, it's gonna cost you $20,000 to put it on the route now. We've got a sunk cost, of that bus already being that site, so we're really not incurring additional costs.
Right, so it's more labor and fuel.
That's what
And the state has also changed its, as they do, right, state changes its formulas on things, so we actually have. I don't remember the exact number, 3.2 million or so.
Yeah, our budget's about between 3.2, 3.4, state thinks 3.4, and our state funding is about 1.6.
Yeah, so
So you're already doing local funding.
And a piece of that, they're really trying to honestly take away because I've had a lot of conversations with the state regarding the fact that we have to charter buses for our extracurricular and the lack of drivers. They thought it was just a luxury for Park City School District. And so we've had banner back and forth saying, no, this is a necessity. We prefer to use the yellow school buses for extracurricular if we could, but we don't want the driver to go drive that bus to cover the tune from that.
Again, as driver numbers begin to get healthy again, we can start taking some of that stuff back in house, but right now we just don't have the reliability they have.
So back to the routes, if we already are absorbing costs, we're talking about fuel and driver. And our decision right now is whether we would support funding that to a route that's not state funded.
Right.
That's essentially the question in the lane,
Yeah, if we get the driver. right?
our operating.
How many?
What do you do, but how, sorry.
No.
How? Right, and so we've got to get drivers, we've known that, we've been trying to get drivers. But once, let's say they all hit the numbers, what would we do? If it was state funded and we were running these routes? And we didn't have the drivers, like. All the other routes that you're using people from the office,
Right.
this is what you're doing.
Yeah, but if we hit the numbers and didn't hit the drivers, we would have to, again, start looking at the routing even more. Our routes would probably get longer and we would probably end up pushing out the time at Ecker, ultimately since they're on the round 3 of the triple turn. So, routes get longer, they get, longer in time, and again, the impact would be felt most harshly in that. Regular, later,
You start the bus routes earlier.
Yeah.
Kids are on their.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Right, I mean, it's kind of, that's our burden, right, like that.
As we look to realign that though, right, so in that, when we realign, we may be able to get to double
Double.
turn instead of triple turn, which means, the fleet stays the same. Except we take out that lag for that third site, right?
Right, so
So
that's
that
what
would
we
be
have
benefit.
right now, so consulting what's happening right now.
But that will be a plus, that's another plus to realignment, is taking away.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Third turn.
But how do we, what's the process for looking at how those routes are optimized? I mean, I know you said you feel where it is right now is optimized. Do we have software that does that? Do we do that manually?
We do have software, right now, it's not being used to level these students. We're relying on the expertise of our dispatcher there, which is significant. And so that's what's being used. So there's all kinds of software that are used often, obviously, bus routes, but I think what we're actually using is very efficient.
And triple turning is always the most efficient, right? So triple turn is what, all the bus experts tell you to do. But there is just the reality in the mountainous areas, it makes it a little more challenging sometimes, especially in weather.
Right. Which isn't, it's not new news that we live in a mountainous area, and we have people living in all sorts of places, like, right.
Right, that's
It's
our-
not,
that's our-
it's our norm, and that's what we're working with. Right, so what would be our next step to try and get routes? If, I mean, we obviously, as a board, have to make that decision if we would unstate fund it still. Sounds like that's a decision-making point.
Yeah, none of this is possible unless we have drivers, right? So we've got the bus, we need a driver. And then the question of funding is, that's your choice, right? If you want, if we can get the numbers up to where we're qualified for state funding, that'd be optimal. And then we can do that with some communication tool. But if not, or we have to choose a funding from the whole fund.
Okay, but none of that's relevant until you have drivers, you're saying.
But like I said, in the really hard to brief, we had 4 that are.
Okay. How quickly would they be onboarded?
4 to 6 weeks. And no, I'm sorry, trained, not on board. Not
Yeah.
board would be, as soon as you get to the interview process and, a week to 2 weeks.
And then training's about 4 to 6 weeks.
And they have to pass, right, the CDL.
Mhm.
Yeah, but our training is usually really good, and we usually get good pass rates.
And we did transition to the CDL portion of the booklet being online. So as soon as we get somebody a higher decision, we can get them start working on this. So we're going to.
And have we had any success with the city municipality?
I did reach out to the transportation director there, and I didn't have not heard back yet. So
How many routes are we running right now? And how many buses on each one?
we've got so right 29 to 30 buses, depending on what's working right now. And these are it depends on what school. One 16 in the Ecker, which is probably our highest, since you have all the kids going through there. Be the high school with less kids on most of the vehicles. That would be our top 3 waves. That would be our highest wave. 16.
Holland has the smallest number of buses, I think they're 2 to
2,
4.
that's right, yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. We will continue discussing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, do you want to give us an update? Zach, sorry. Zach, do you want to give us an update?
Yeah. Public comment.
And then we'll go into public comment.
Alright, so for city council, we're kind of busy this time of year. Yesterday and today we had our student club days, which is where student-led clubs can advertise during both lunches, so students can sign up and join different clubs. And from the update I got, it turned out really well. We had a bunch of kids interested in joining a bunch of the different clubs we have at PCHS. And we are really looking forward to seeing how the clubs grow over the course of the year. And The next thing we have is, the next event we are going to have is a senior sunrise, which is gonna be this Saturday at 7 a.m. It's gonna be on Dover Field. It should be super fun. Student council will have hot chocolate for all the seniors. And then after that, we have our homecoming week, which is probably the biggest week we have. September 26th, we have our powder puff game at 7. It will be at the high school. We have on the 27th, we have our powder buff game at 7. We have our bonfire, which is going to be on September 28th at 7. We also have a school pep rally on Friday, September 29th for homecoming. And then we have the tailgate right before the homecoming game. Then we have the homecoming game, which is Ross Jordan. And then we have the homecoming dance, which is from 8 to 10 p.m. on Saturday, September 30th. It is going to be at Silver Lake Lodge up at Deer Valley. And the theme is Under the Harvest Moon.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Okay, we have anyone for public comment? Right. You like to?
Come on up
show
and,
us?
yeah.
And if you just fill out the blue slip before you leave.
Over here.
Yeah.
This one.
My name is Brooke Haas. I'm a resident of Lower Deer Valley, and so I appreciate any consideration that you would give to bringing back that acts that my child last year I had extinction. So I guess I was 2 of those kids because he certainly rode the bus every day, and so did she as much as possible. The 2 things I took away from the recent conversation is first, communication. I can't reach all of those people. I tried really hard. I went through some HOAs. I got some great feedback. I'm texting with at least 4 families right now, and they would like their children to ride the bus, and they do want to utilize that if it's at all possible. But I didn't get to everyone, and so I can't give you great statistics of there's X number of kids that we're missing. I know that most of us are not using the speed alley location to drop off because it doesn't make any sense timing wise, safety wise, etc. And so we're skipping that, and therefore the children aren't riding the bus at all, which I think is an exciting and missing point of their education. It would be great to, not just for the ease of their lives, but also to get them back on the bus and safe. The second piece is financial. I did receive a letter from the district that said I was eligible for reimbursement. And in the factors that you're considering, I just did the math based on gross assumptions of, I only used 15 kids on a route. And so, you know, not considering each route, not considering the total number, but I use the current IRS number that you plug in for reimbursable for mileage and a distance that it takes me, but some people will be farther, some people will be shorter, but those, you know, making those sort of assumptions, it was $58,000 that you will be faced with in reimbursable charges from the people like me who don't have a bus route anymore. So it may not be that big of a difference, and it may be a savings if you could find the drivers. And I know, sounds to me like if there's a direction, if first of all, if the communication happened and we could get some positive comments, you know, one family said the reason why they're not sending their children to the Park City School District, you know, maybe it's not true, but they did tell me directly, is because of they're not on the bus service. And so they're sending their kid to a different district. I don't see how that would make it easier, but that's one of the things that's mentioned. And so if we could get more people committed to the bus, there would definitely be a benefit financially, potentially if the people then don't ask you for the reimbursement, which again, it came from the district itself on your letterhead, so I'm assuming it's valid that I can. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Brooke.
Thanks for the one over.
All right, any other, yeah, go ahead, come on. Please, yeah.
My name is Stan Rodman. I have a daughter in 3rd grade at Carlos. I'm here in reference to the policy book, section 10, that has to do with harassment, bullying. And specifically, in the paragraph here, it refers to parents being notified within 24 hours if a student is subject, that is the subject of that sort of event. My question is, and what I haven't been able to find in my research is, as a parent, am I entitled to know if my student, my daughter in this case, is subject to any kind of disciplinary action before that action is invoked? Does that make sense?
That's
Think
a
so.
good question.
Well, it depends what the discipline is. If it's a verbal redirection from a teacher or a lunchroom supervisor or something, you're not gonna probably be notified about that. If it's removable from the classroom for a significant amount of time, we're gonna, because your child misbehaved or had a temper tantrum, we're gonna put them in with a special teacher for a half a day, or an in-school suspension, then you'd be notified.
That's not codified here, is it? Is that an entitlement or not an entitlement? I should be notified if an in-school suspension is meted out
Yes,
prior to the commencement of that detention.
it depends. It depends. So if there was a physical altercation of some sort, physical altercation, my child hit Randy's child, then my child may be removed. And it might be the end of the day when the school calls or contacts me and says we had to keep them apart and this is how you handle it.
If in the course of if the student is placed, let's say, in ISS, in the course of the ensuing investigation, it turns out that that student was not responsible and was mistakenly identified and punished. What is my recourse? This, I'll just say, this is not a hypothetical.
I would say at a minimum, you're doing an apology. I mean, look, I think given it's your daughter, we should probably talk about it after.
It's not my daughter.
Okay.
It is not my
This is
daughter.
hypothetical.
It's been made very clear, and I absolutely agree with it, that information on individuals are confidential.
Yeah.
My concern is that, and my question is that, let me put it this way, I feel I would like to know if my daughter, number one, misbehaves, but number two, is subject to some sort of disciplinary action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prior to that being implemented.
Yeah, I think what superintendent said is in line with the policy, right? Which is if there's gonna be a consequence, it's not immediate, right? Like a separation of two kids that are fighting, then the parents should be notified, and I would imagine they are. I think that, yeah, I mean, and if they weren't, I'd say the first port of call is Kim Howe and the principal, and if the response from the parent, if the response from Kim is not satisfactory to the parent, then I think they should bring it up with the superintendent and the board representative, which is probably me, or Wendy. So, I mean, I think, you know, oh, yeah.
Harley's?
Oh, yeah, I guess it is, yeah, sorry. Apologies, Nick.
Well,
Depending on the neighborhood,
but I read it from CU in 74, so.
I think, yeah, I mean, look, I would say the first port of call is definitely the principal, because she's in charge of ultimately the discipline and any type of consequences. And if there isn't a satisfactory result, I would say, escalate that to the superintendent, and then she can address it with Mr. Tanner and everyone else in the admin staff. But I mean, in theory, look, it's safe schools, right? So everyone should have the ability to have a safe education, and then there should be due process where there's discipline, right?
The due
Yeah.
process is referenced in the book.
Right.
However, to be judged guilty of something prior to that, and then again, especially the parent being left out of the whole scenario. I guess my last question would be, is that something that maybe should be in writing?
I think there's differences too. We're in charge of policy and then there's practices related to a policy. And if we get to, we couldn't pick every scenario to address in a policy. And if we get too bogged down in practices in a policy, which first of all is not within our purview, you are then setting up for potential, like you have to change a few words in it. You have to post it for a month. I think it's a legit question for sure. And as Andrew said, I would see what the practices are of this hypothetical school, the person who would, be in charge of that. And I don't know what, I suppose we could look at a policy that codifies something, but I think it's also going to be different based on ages, based on the school dynamics, based on what happened in the classroom. Like, I think that would be more frustrating. We codified one size fits all from the board level. So,
yeah, plus I think it's tough without knowing the specifics of the situation.
Yeah.
So I think, we can talk about it more offline, but I would definitely encourage the parents to reach out, and I would expect, from my own experience with that school and my child misbehaving, I would expect that there'd be communication to the parents if there's an issue. And so maybe there was a miscommunication or something, but I would definitely start with the principal, and then we can take it further.
That's already happened. It's so, in general, it's not an unreasonable expectation to know if your child's going to be subjected to some sort of disciplinary action beyond, I understand, like verbal, I understand that, but something beyond that. If the experience for the child in case is pretty traumatic. It's a young girl, young boy, but I don't think they're able to reconcile and everyone like, yeah, well, mistakes happen.
Yeah. No, thanks for bringing it to our attention. We'll follow up with the principal as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, you want to break? Yeah. Dr. Gilbert.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm a little PowerPoint, short. Not sure we had our academic focus, which is always exciting. So let's see if we can get that back up. Thanks. All right, so we are in the welcome. We're in the first few weeks of school, and as indicated even by the parent that was here, we are definitely seeing some dysregulation across schools. So dysregulation meaning, just getting used to being in the routine of things. We have been, as a district, kind of lulled into, usually the first day of school, kids just kind of get right back into the routine, and maybe not as easily as used to be. So makes even more important the vision and mission of the district, right? So I always start with this, but you can never say it enough, right? That our vision is that our whole child practice is that students are safe, supported, engaged, challenged, and healthy, but safe being, the underlying theme there. So whatever it takes for students to feel psychologically safe, physically safe, emotionally safe, right? This is really important, and kind of a baseline expectation of the system. And then, of course, our mission to inspire and support all students equitably. And it's always great to hear what things are moving forward and are moving the needle for students. And again, the longer students are with us, we do see the access to all kinds of great programming and great results in secondary readiness. We're second in the state, second or third in the state for that consistently over time. And our purpose as a district, our board governance team, our district office team, we are here to create the conditions for staff and student success. And I think as a board, you say that all the time. You know, what resources do you need? What do we need to make this happen? And so that is our role. As a board, we do follow the mission vision, and then our values are also linked to these strategic pillars. So each month we try to highlight at least one of these pillars. And tonight, of course, we talked about academic success based on some of last year's data, as well as some of the goals that are in place. Last month, I talked a little bit about our theory of action. This is a part of our strategic plan, meaning that, you know, in order to try to hit that mission and vision, our success is defined by students' academic and social growth and proficiency. So our theory of action is this: we engage students in learning using a rigorous standards-based curriculum, evaluate their learning based on those standards, and analyze learning data to adjust and provide individualized support where needed. Then our students will be equitably and effectively supported, and student outcomes will improve, right? So this theory of action is a kind of a basis of the strategic plan, and it fits the strategic pillar because the strategic pillar talks about being data-driven, using evidence-based best practices, and then again, highlighting the fact that our goal is, even if a student struggles, because every student struggles somewhere. Some struggle in kindergarten, some struggle in fourth grade when they hit fractions, some struggle when they hit calculus, right? Or some don't struggle all the way through, and then all of a sudden in college, you know, they hit a wall. So actually, I always prefer when a student struggles a little bit earlier, because that way they learn the resiliency skills to overcome that hurdle and keep learning. So our post-secondary readiness and success metrics are very high. As the audit indicated, the audit report, we are actually the third highest academic score set in Utah school districts, which was great to hear from the audit report. That was the first time I heard that data. So it was from them. They had some early access. And we are this year in the top 4% of US high schools, according to US News and World Ranking, right? So if you believe that ranking or you like that ranking, you know, it's a good metric. It has moved, the district has moved up in that area. You asked about those measurable strategic goals, and these we've shown before. These are kind of the 5-year goals. So schools themselves work on their school improvement plan through their land trust plans that they put in. That is, you know, they feed up into these measurable strategic 5 areas that Stacy and the team talked about. In that math goal, that was huge, right? It's getting up to 90% proficiency in math by the end of 8th grade. And you saw they're at 51%, but they actually doubled from 2 years ago and doubled again. So they were not aligned. And now the curriculum and the instruction is aligned. And with that alignment, they're seeing those gains. So that's why the alignment of the academic system is so critically important. Safety, as I said, is, you know, kind of that baseline. We have an ongoing commitment to ensuring our students are safe, our schools are safe, supported, engaged, challenged, and healthy. And we have a wellness plan that we're implementing this year, K-12, which means that classrooms across the system are getting bolstered support and direct teaching and experiences with different aspects of wellness, health and well-being, emotional regulation, solving problems, things like that. I feel now these next couple of slides a little bit like public service announcements, but September is safety preparedness month. So in September, we get to come back to school, we do all of the drills. We do all the things. So Mike mentioned them in his report. I'll mention them as well. We do bus evacuation drills, we do fire drills. We do kind of if there's a negative happening in a school and we need to do a soft lockdown or a hard lockdown, we do all those drills according to state requirements. And statewide in Utah, we all use the same plan. So no matter who the emergency responder is anywhere in the state, they have similar training protocols. So that's helpful. The wellness I talked a little bit about. Carolyn and her team worked on that plan, and there are lessons there. The teachers develop the lessons, but there's a common theme and a consistency in what we're addressing in each school. So that's exciting. Also, it's anti-bullying month. Again, we can never say this enough. I've looked back at my notes, even from like being a superintendent in 2010, and guess what? Even in 2010, we were talking about use kindness, not cruelty, your words matter. What does it mean to be empathetic? No one should ever be bullied, but we just, I think, have to continue to lead out in this messaging because some of the behaviors we're seeing, maybe it's not bullying because it's not a pattern, but it's still unkind behavior and it doesn't make it fun to come to school if you feel like you don't have friends there. Right, so a new school year means new beginnings, new adventures, new friendships, and new challenges. The slate is clean and anything can happen. So even if your child is having a conflict with somebody early in the year, it doesn't mean they're always going to have the conflict, and it doesn't mean they should always be separated. Sometimes, you know, we have to give the kids the chance to solve the problems and grow up and learn to, problem solve together. The other thing we really want to make sure we mention this month, again, public service announcement, attendance matters. Did you know if your student misses only 1 day per month, that over the course of their pre-K through 12 experience, their educational career, they miss a full year? Attendance really does matter. There's a direct correlation between student attendance and student achievement. Now, if your student has a fever, they're vomiting, they're feeling very ill, that does not mean, that you should say, attendance matters. They're allowed to be sick when they need to be sick and stay home. But otherwise, we really encourage consistent attendance. Based on the work of the Inspiring and Supporting All Students Academically Committee, the committee meets again in October. They're going to continue to work with our external equity assessment that's been going on since last spring to analyze the outcomes of any data as it comes in, but also to look at the other data, things like we've been talking about tonight. What is the population that's accessing the different pathways? Is it measuring, equity across? Are we missing girls in engineering? Are we missing, special needs and PC caps? How can we incorporate an inclusive lens across all of those different aspects of the policy? And then they're also developing the procedures and the action steps, or what we might call an administrative regulation, to implement that policy. So we'll be bringing updates on that. This is also a Hispanic Heritage Month, and I thank the FACE team for great partnership across our community. We have different agencies working on this and ways to highlight this celebration. If you'd like to hear some of the next steps from that audit report that came out, we have a wonderful data governance plan, like data security, cybersecurity. So we are going to propose at least using a similar protocol for an environmental regulations governance plan so that we can transfer any institutional knowledge and history of these things in, as Mr. Tanner said, kind of a military grade binder, to be able to make sure that anybody coming in would know that this exists on the Kearns campus. When we arrived, we were told it's a cap in place protocol, and we adhered to the best management practice of cap in place. But there are other nuances to the particular covenant that we have here. So we want to make sure that we have that in place, and we feel like that is a great best practice. With regard to facility renovations, permitting, and construction, I don't think anybody knew that we had been zoned out of existence on Hillview Road, so that added time, right? That added time. But we do think in Summit County, it is pretty reasonable to plan for 9 months to a year on actual permitting. We can all say whether we think it should be that long or not, but right now it is. So it's probably worthwhile to think about documenting that. And potentially a facilities or renovations construction policy. When you hire an administrator, we always go to the policy book first. We don't usually cross-reference between a county code, a municipal code, a state code, but we do go to a policy. So if we have a policy in place, that might be something to just think about, because anything over 10,000 square feet requires special conditional use permits and things in Summit County. So just worth noting. The academic team, I thought they did a great job sharing the work that we've been doing with traditionally underserved populations, as well as outcomes data. And as all of you know, especially those of you that have lived here a long time, this has been work that has been ongoing, and the district has tried so many different approaches. So the idea is dialing this in with the multi-tiered system of support, really focusing on individual student needs, using the data and continuing to make progress, and really dialing it in to each and every student. the alternative language services, the policy you adopted, the plan you have, we didn't have in place before. That's something new. We're gonna be measuring, monitoring that. The MTSS guidelines, we never had such a robust plan as we do now, along with that. So I think all of those things I would anticipate that our student academic gains are going to continue to accelerate. Didn't talk about this very much yesterday, but in the strategic plan elements, this is really more of just like the construction is a statewide recommendation. The strategic plan also is kind of a statewide recommendation. The governor's office of, I don't remember what the PD is.
Planning and budget.
Planning and budget put out a best practices guide to strategic planning. They have 8 different components, 8 different elements. We do 6 of those elements really well already. And what we have, it's the 2 that we're kind of missing. So they want just broken out a little bit more of the school-based goals and then how they link to the district goal and how it links to the outcomes. So we just need to make that a little bit more explicit. And then there was a lot of celebration over our predictive analytics platform. And this is just one screen from that predictive analytics platform where each of those dots is actually a student. So if you have the student, you can actually hover over the dot and you can see if the student is not performing as well. We can then group these students and say, okay, these students, we're going to invite to an after school program for 6 weeks. We're going to extend their school day. And then after 6 weeks, and we do the next set of assessments, we can see if they move closer to being, in range. And then for the kids up here, what are we doing to keep them moving even beyond expected growth? So this data helps us a great deal, and there's a lot you can do with it from a return on investment scenario. That's my last slide. Let's see. And we couldn't do it, without all the partners. We have a wonderful partnership with our Park City Ed Foundation, the Community Foundation you heard tonight, just one of their programs. Recycle Utah has been amazing. And United Way is actually the partnership for those measured progress goals. The goals beyond just our district and the regional. And it's so fun to be able to compare with Davis and Granite and Canyons. And then we're in the room too. We're the smallest district in the room. But it's great to be able to say, here are the strategies we're trying to get to these. So that's my report for this thing.
Great, thank you. Mike, you want to give us a facilities update?
Remind the public and the board that with all the school projects have been planned to minimize educational impact and ensure safety for students and staff and minimize traffic and parking disruption. We have weekly construction meetings are being held with the architects and builders and district staff to ensure timely coordination, decision making. And MOCA, our owners rep, is also conducting bi-weekly owner meetings now for important updates and decisions. For each one of the schools, Park City High School, fully permitted, full construction is underway on schedule. Right now, we're putting in new utilities, relocating some of the old ones and reconnecting them. You'll start to see structural steel starting to get raised there at a rapid pace at the high school with columns and beams, and all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing weapons are starting to go in right now. Substantial completion spring of 2025. And Eckerd Hill Middle School, again, permitted, full construction underway on schedule. Underground mechanical, electrical, plumbing is being worked. Forms and footings for new wings are starting to take shape, which is kind of neat. We'll put a new stone hard kitchen flooring in the production kitchen there this last week, and the mechanical room steel work is underway. Bus lane modifications are complete, allowing the return to normal bus operations. And the kitchen renovations will be complete, and the gym will be returned to service by fall break, which is good news. We have a temporary gym wall installed there. If you have driven by and see, it's quite a monstrosity, but hopefully it'll be weather tighter soon. And our church property purchase will close in October. Substantial completion date will be spring of 2025 for Eckerd Hill Middle School. For Jeremy, fully permitted, full construction is underway. We're on schedule. Work is progressing nicely as crews begin placing the finishing roof components in place. Interior framing is underway, along with mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-ins are in progress. All exterior concrete and hardscape site work is complete. And the bus lane modifications are complete. Playground equipment was reinstalled. And we're actually progressing at a point where we're starting to look at furniture purchases for that school. Substantial completion will be summer of 2024, although we're tracking a little bit ahead of time on that date. McPollen, permitted, full construction underway, we're on schedule. Work is progressing nicely as exterior siding and architectural building components are installed. Interior frame and drywall, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-ins are happening, and exterior hardware concrete site work is in progress. Exciting to see windows and frames getting ready to go in at McPollen. And again, the furniture, FF&E column is being evaluated for bidder state contract for purchase. Substantial completion will be summer of 2024. Parleys is permitted now. Full construction is finally underway on schedule. Site preparation, stormwater prevention, pollution prevention plan, and fencing are complete. Now the interior work is underway. Sound walls are installed to minimize educational impact inside the school. And the builders are working closely with Principal Kim to minimize classroom disruption. Substantial completion date is October of 2024, so just after the school year starts next year. Trail side, we start the coordination with the county and USPD for our project numbers. And we're working a package for CUP permit for the trail side. Design work was resumed last week, and we anticipate a summer 2024 construction starts next summer, and anticipate substantial completion the next summer. Just as a reminder to the board, to the public, that we post weekly an update to construction, a summary in layman's term on the website, construction portion of the website. And we do have JD representing MOCA, our district's owners rep here tonight, if you had any in-depth questions on the construction. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, I don't have any questions.
Anything there? Want to ask about budget?
Yeah, always, yeah, no, seriously, how are we doing on budget?
Oh, we're fine. We're tracking again, as I mentioned, within bounds of inflation. There's been no changes there. No surprises. In fact, we're seeing some GMPs coming, guaranteed maximum price on the projects that are right on target, which is really great considering some of the construction things that we're seeing in Salt Lake City school district and a couple of the other districts around there. So we're budget, so we're proud. We don't anticipate any major jumps based upon what we're seeing with that supply chain labor issues. So we got and
then the other thing I was going to ask about was the big soils, where are we with that? Obviously, we've mentioned the audit and
Yeah.
Soil.
The soils from the audit were no surprise. We knew that we had that problem in our hands. It mostly occurred as a result of soil removal without knowledge of their covenants to behind treasure. We're at the point now where we're working on the plan, the materials management plan, and they follow with our environmental consultant, R&R, who's working directly with the DEQ to find the plan. We hope to have that completed here towards the end of the calendar year. And that will be a recommendation then for disposal. So there'll be a timeline to along with the recommended location that's going to go to. We anticipate, and I don't know if this is going to work out this way, but our environmental consultant has a safety concern for his it's moved during the school year. There could potentially be some risks to the children. So he's strongly worried that material management plan request with the DEQ to request that it be moved in the summer after the snow is off and into the children. So that's what the timeline is for us, is that we'll be pulling that out in the summer, next summer. And so that's where we are putting the plan in the schools.
If we're moving it in summer, does that pose any risks to the pretty normal uses we have of the fields and things around there during the summer?
Potentially, right, there's always a potential for dust coming off this thing like that, and we can minimize that by keeping the water down during the process. We could modify field locations, and I anticipate the whole extraction process probably taking close to a month. It's gonna be about 1,000 truckloads. And it's depending on what we get lined up and do. So, there may be some impact to both the summer school location and to field availability. We'll have to look at that later, Carol's, and things like
Yeah, if we had more of a plan, we'll know more about it cost, yeah, potential grants to cover. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have two policies that are up for adoption, policy 9030 and policy 10020. Do we have any public, actually, I'll first of all entertain a motion to pass the two policies or adopt the two policies. Wendy,
I make a motion, I have nothing to say about it.
what do I do? Can you make a
No,
motion?
I make a motion to,
Adopt policy.
adopt
9030 and
9030.
All right, do you have any comments on either of these policies, or do we have any public input? Lori? Yeah. Any
The
public
one
input?
Mary Morgan is referring to, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, we had public support from PCA and 9030.
Mhm.
All right, all those in favor of passing these two policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, they pass. Now, do we have any public comments on student fees? All right.
And this would be specific to the second reading of the one, correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
specific to the second reading. We have no one here for public comments, so let's note that for the record. We have, next up, 801 student fees. Board of Education has provided two opportunities for the public to comment on the new proposed student fee. Is scheduled for Park City High School. Now entertain a motion to approve the student fees, which are listed as second reading memo in executive content.
The only thing I have to say is, can I say something?
Well, first we'll entertain a motion to approve, and then we can have discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the student fees as stated.
Second.
Okay, now let's discuss. Yes, maybe.
If it's silly, but their word off, which off season means 2 absent.
Yes,
It's
correct.
off-season.
Yeah, it was it.
This was the fee we talked about having all students have access to. The concerns, I believe, we discussed
Correct.
at the last meeting,
Questions.
yeah, and can we address any of those? Like, is this just our concerns, if I recall, was that we were worried a bit about, or at least it occurred that possibly the people accessing this, have everybody paying and a limited group of people are being able to access this.
Correct. Yeah, so we've invited athletic director sheets and principal are allowed to be here to answer any of the questions you
Right.
have with performance fee, correct? And I believe in talking with them, this would be charged to any student in athletics, correct?
It would be charged every student.
Every student in athletics. And then those students would have a chance in their off season to have performance training to help them with their individual sport or sports.
And-
They participate.
Mainly in season, but then you get preseason and off season as well. It would be
Right.
the whole school year, even during the summer.
Okay, great. In principle, it sounds super great to have students, because I know there's a lot of students who can't have, there's a lot of private stuff going on, we know all over the town, right, all the time, and this helps offer off-season training at $75, right? Or, I'm
No,
sorry.
Should be 40.
Okay, so we
Oh,
just
should be
change that in the reline too.
Should be 40.
Okay,
So
yeah,
75
I
there.
think we put a cushion in up to $50, but really we're looking at $40.
Okay,
so 40 would be the max.
50 would be the max.
Is that 75 combined with
Right.
what it trains to? So Wendy, that may have been combined with the athletic trainer fee that's already there. It may have been added to make that 75.
So is it, if my kid is paying 75 or 50?
Well, that's what, it should have been what Roger said. It should have been that lower, the lower number. So when we calculated it, we with covering all the costs, $40 was gonna cover all the costs, but we felt like we didn't, at that time, we didn't know what the salary was gonna be based on experience. So we set up to $50.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so we can change that to 50. yeah,
50,
sure.
okay, so max 50, to me, that sounds like, in theory, like a great access, equity, all of that stuff. I'm thoughtful that how, number one, let's say everybody, so those students who would maybe traditionally be taking private soccer or doing off-season stuff at Matt Noob or wherever, at $100 a session are gonna be like, forget that, I'm gonna take advantage of this, which is great. Are you filling up then? Is it really, can all students do it? What if the entire, like, is the capacity? You know, that moment where you offer a school the train physical exam you have to take. And so those get filled up within like 30 minutes every year. We're on trying to get on those. I did for my kids, never made it. That seemed to me like a great opportunity for people who didn't have a doctor, they could make an appointment at, go to, have access to, should have first dibs on them. How do we monitor who's accessing this? And I'm not trying to leave out anybody. I'm just wondering, like, it was one trainer, is this fee, and then how this gets practically accessed by somebody who paying $50 is a lot for them. And they can't even access it because maybe they have a job after school, or, you know, they're not the ones getting the benefit of it. Is it a possibility to do this structured in a way where those who want to access this, like, I just want to avoid asking people to pay, and maybe it's getting a grant or something so that not all.
Point is well taken on that. It's meant to be team centered, not individual centered. However, we did talk about drop-in for those kids who may, like you said, have a job during the off season that can still get there. Because this person wouldn't be there more than about 4 hours a day. So it's primarily immediately after school for those 4 hours. And so trying to rotate primarily the in-season sports in first, and then the others that are either preseason or off-season there. And then the person that would be in this is obviously the expert in making that schedule, similar to a collegiate model. It's designed to have access for every team.
Right. I just great. I'd like the theory again. I wonder if it makes more sense. Have we surveyed and seen numbers from teams of players who might take advantage of this? Given that I wouldn't care so much if everybody was being charged. I only ask these questions because we're charging everybody up front for a service or an opportunity that they might not even be accessing. And I would hate to put that burden on somebody who already has challenges.
We have
part of the team.
We have 17 right now that I'm trying to calendar into the weight room.
Okay.
That's more than the sports that we have going on right now in the fall. We have a similar concept with what we do with the trainer right now, whether a kid stays healthy the whole season or not, they pay into that to have access to it.
Okay.
And, you know, we even, whoever the trainer is, and my vision on this is gonna be the same, where we have kids who aren't even part of athletics that will see the trainer.
Yeah.
And the trainer will still treat that kid.
Okay.
Where we can get to the point where kids that want to start a fitness club or something can get access to the expertise of this individual while they're there. We're limited to the space that we have up top there with the room, but at the same time, I say limited, that can fit a whole football team in there.
Yeah.
So we can get quite a few kids in there and give it time.
Are there waiver options for fee? How are we gonna assess that?
We could definitely get with the Rice Foundation and say, hey, it's part of the unified fee that they're paying. And so it's not like it's a separate fee that's gonna be, so if
it's gonna be added on to the $400 I pay if my kid plays soccer.
It's not gonna be additional. And so any child who needs any support could access Rise Fund. And if they're on free and reduced, then those funds can be covered by the district.
Gotcha. So that fund could already be covered because it's gonna be an added fee. So you're just gonna see every fee as it is right now, plus a $50 or whatever.
Up to
Or up to $50, potentially. Okay, and then it's gonna be an added option. Yeah, yeah,
And it actually, for keeping our students healthy, long term, it's actually quite good.
sorry, okay. Okay. Thanks, I think as long as we keep those front and center, it feels accessible, really feels accessible, not ask a student to come and talk to me and
It's actually
kind of like,
included.
or asking Rise, yeah, to. I think the idea is could be potentially great.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to pick on what I think I heard you say, that there's the potential for children who are not in athletic programs currently to still take advantage of the training facility, is that correct?
Yeah, we have to see what it looks like with the program once we get it.
So it'll be about capacity and where you fit.
Yes. And we already offer a weightlifting class with
Yeah.
with our, with one of our PE teachers, and our student practice it during the day. And if space allowed, we would imagine that this, or student could have drop-in privileges, but that would have to wait and see what time of the year, because.
Yeah.
I mean, we have, how many, I think it's like 70% of our kids participate in athletics, you know, I mean, it's a huge number. So,
Why is this an additional fee and not part of the athletic department? What was the thought process behind not having this just be part of the budget?
this is it. Yeah, well, I don't know. My question would be, when we talk about the budget, that we need to kind of break that down a little bit more with you to tease that out. Is because of everything we've been doing so far since 5 years ago when Todd was still here, but everything just became straight up pay to participate. I would love to incorporate it in the budget if it's possible.
So we have no actual line item for athletics in the budget at all?
Well, just for coaches. Yeah, for the pay for the coaches, you know.
But isn't this
So
sort of a coach?
so
I
the
mean,
board
isn't it
could
all trainer?
always add an additional position, sure. To not pass that on to the students.
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
mean,
I would love to do it that way.
We're trying to get to a place where we're raising fees, I mean.
yeah, I mean, I kind of think it's like part of having an athletic trainer as
Yeah.
part of an athletic department rather than an additional, like in my mind. That's what I mean.
And maybe
So,
those skills can
I
still
also
turn
think
away from fees.
The model that we use here is very different than models that we've had in Texas. I mean, we have an agreement with Intermountain Health, and they are the ones that provide the trainer and the strength and conditioning coach, and we just contract, we pay for that salary, but it's contracted through Intermountain.
It's not on here.
So it'd still be a contract, it wouldn't be an employee type situation.
That's how we do it now. Yeah, could be, if that's the way. That's the way.
Well, I mean, that doesn't really matter, right? Whether it's we're hiring someone directly or outsourcing it, right?
Correct.
We can definitely put that as a line item, we can put an idea plan forward to.
So what is the cost of this
Yeah.
then for the year?
I think we're 28, 32,000. Maybe 28, 60 in mind, I can find the exact number, but when we calculated it out, with the amount of kids that covered the cost.
But I appreciate what Andrew's bringing up. We're trying to go away from fees, like, we're trying to get lower on fees and more higher student access, especially given, recent awareness that maybe some of the barriers that are up is, paying $400 to participate on the soccer team. And then there are kids, as we know, who didn't make any of the lacrosse team or any of the soccer team last year. Having access to play also or train would be a neat thing. I would hope that we could offer to those students as well.
Yeah.
So it feels to me like it's a win-win if we could get this in the budget and it works both. It's very consistent with our goals of lowering barriers.
That's mine.
I like that.
I like that in principle, I mean, cognizant of budget impact, but,
Yeah.
I mean, in principle, I agree completely that it'd be wonderful to have that funded. Be part of the athletic budget.
Yeah. And then accessible by even, well, as you say, it could be accessible by non-athletic students, but some of these kids aren't playing on sports because they're not making the team. They're not playing they're not playing because they don't like it. How many players didn't make the roster? 40 something kids didn't make any team. So they couldn't even play. Soccer, I know there were several, a couple dozen
I
too.
mean, I would, my view is I'd rather this be a position and part of the budget, right? Like a coach would be, if we're gonna be doing it, rather than forcing every kid who plays athletics to pay $50.
Mhm. In addition to already.
Yeah,
Yeah, this one item is not gonna be a large impact on the budget, right? We just need that director from the board. For this, we wouldn't even need a motion
yeah, I
at
was,
this point.
It sounds like it's about the same price as one bustle.
One route.
are you okay with that, giving that directive?
Yeah, honestly, I'm wondering if we can get someone to drive a bus and do that when we're not driving the bus. So,
In the jobs.
How many CDL rounds? All right, so that's the, all right, so then I think that's the directive.
Yeah.
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 So that ends that. All right,
For the strength and the trainer also.
So,
whatever made up $75.
so let me back up. Some of the spend plans that we're gonna talk about now
Oh, okay.
included an athletic trainer, $75 in the total. This fee was a separate fee that was brought to me on top of what we're charging for athletics. So that fee now would just be a line item on the budget.
Okay.
And we'll work that out with Jamie, and we'll figure that out. But that would be separate from it. I guess I'm a little confused because some of these spend plans have athletic trainer on them, not all of them, but some of them. So I would say that that's separate, the athletic trainer is separate from this $32,000, correct?
Okay, so then from a procedural standpoint, we're gonna withdraw the vote on 8.0 and student fees and direct the administration to include that in our budget, but then we have a discussion around the amended extracurricular fees.
So you want me to share some information on that?
Yeah,
President?
yeah,
So what happened? So once we had our external audit, which is not OLAG, it's through Squire. They review fees once every 3 years. We discovered and worked with athletic director sheets. There are two of the sports they picked. One of them was being charged $50 more. As we got into it with coaches and talking to coaches, there was a misunderstanding dealing with how the columns read, where the column on the very right reads total maximum fee. However, that includes the fundraisers. So really the first column, the fee amount, is what they're allowed to charge. So athletic director sheets went back to his coaches. We've amended those to what they've been charging already. And they're asking for a first and second reading, first reading today, second reading in a month, to amend those to what the practice actually has been due to the misunderstanding that we had between the business office and the high school.
The misunderstanding was basically the fundraising line, correct?
Yes.
So the coaches were thinking they could do a maximum plus fundraising, but the rule is that you have to do the fundraising is included up to
In
the
the max,
maximum. So if I'm paying $400, that's including my uniform, my, time on the field and the fundraising I'm gonna do.
So this affects 8 groups: men's and women's basketball, men's and women's golf, men's and women's soccer, cheer, and then debate, speech debate. Those are the only groups that are affected by that. And I think in pretty much every case, it was about a $50 difference, I believe, as we were looking at that. So that's just bringing us into compliance with practices. And because it's only audited once every 3 years, we just didn't catch that misunderstanding sooner.
So it's going up.
Correct.
okay. Do you have any questions on these fees for the first reading? Okay, do we have any public comment on the amended fees first reading? No, we do not. Okay. I will now entertain a motion to go into close. To discuss, strategy session, to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, and to discuss the character, personal competence, or physical, and mental health of an individual.
I make a motion to go into close.
Okay, Nick? Yeah.
Yes.
One,
Yes.
and yes. Okay, so we'll go into place and then we come back out and shut this.
558.